Good evening, everyone. My name is Rohini Manchanda. I'm a public speaker and associated with SeekMed. SeekMed is a global telemedicine platform which connects the patient from around the globe to India's award-winning doctors through a video consultation. As you all know, that we keep bringing our very senior experts and specialists to talk about all the health problems and care, so that our viewers and users are very well informed about everything related to healthcare. And today we have come up with a very important topic related to gynecology because people still feel a bit hesitant to talk about these problems like yeast infection, endometriosis, PCOD, and breast cancer. And to answer us on this topic, we have a very highly renowned specialist with us, Dr. Rahul Manchanda, MBBS, MD, FICS, FACS, Head of Gynae Endoscopy Unit, PSRI, New Delhi. So a very warm welcome to you, sir, and I request you to please give a brief introduction about your specialty and expertise.
Uh, Thank you, Rohini. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me. Thank you, SeekMed, for having me here. Um, I am a gynecologist, as you said, and I do minimally invasive surgery. That's really my specialty in women, which means surgery through minimally invasive techniques or cuts, which is much nicer for women. I, of course, head the unit at PSRI Hospital and have been there now for 8 years. We treat almost everything under the sun that a woman can or is traumatized with, whether it's like you said, a yeast infection, or even doing prevention of cancer like cervical cancer, breast cancer. You're looking at bleeding problems that women have, pain during her periods, which we will talk about as we go along. Uh, People not being able to conceive, fibroids you must have heard of, endometriosis you spoke about, those who, especially because these things, we know that the woman is the most important piece in the puzzle of the family. And if she is well, everybody is well. So, yes, we treat all the problems and make it as minimally invasive as possible. And with these times that we live in, more so important to look after, what is considered to be, I think, the most important resource in community and in our country and in our families.
Thank
Mike
you
is
so
on
much, sir.
mute. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much. Before starting our questions, I would like to inform all our viewers that this is a live webinar, and if there's anything you want to ask the doctor or have any related query, please write to us on comments, and we will try to take up all the questions right away. So let's begin. And doctor, to start with, I think the most important question is the breast cancer, because I think we often hear it, like women do, deal with this kind of problem a lot these days. So how is it caused? What are the precautions, and how can one self-examine this?
Okay. So now again, you've touched on a topic that's very important, like you said.
Sure.
It's not spoken about very much. And let me tell you a little funny point is because in our country, actually, the breast is dealt with by general surgeons. But in other places, say in Europe, the breast comes under the purview of a gynecologist. So there's a bit of a mix and match, though gynecologists here also deal with breast issues. And again, in our country, the biggest killer is supposed to be cervical cancer, which is cancer of the cervix. But now I think breast is slowly catching up, if not reached. And it's important for all of us to know what are the causative factors, when to take notice of something and visit a specialist, because these are things that are very preventable. Okay, so I'm going to, if you permit me, since I have a very small, I have a couple of slides which I'd like to share on this very important topic. We do these things all over the country, and if you permit me, just a few slides and also show
Sure, sir.
you
Please.
how to do the breast examination. Okay, so I'm going to
That'd be
share,
great,
give
sir.
me.
Yes, sir. We can see the slide.
Okay, so you can see the slide, right?
Yes, sir. We can.
So I'm going to go back a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this was obviously, like I said, this is one of the presentations that I have when I go and do outreach programs, and you can see the various problems, gynecological problems that people do have. It's listed here, um, and one of the most important thing is breast examination or breast self-examination. Okay, and
Yes,
I'll just show you that PPT as we go along. But to come back to what you talked about, and there are certain lifestyle related breast cancer risk factors. There are certain factors that we can't change, which are genetic makeup, and there are certain factors that we think are important and are myths and which need to be dispelled. So, if you look at this, of course, alcohol is something that we should try and avoid. That's the best case scenario. It does increase the risk of having breast cancer, especially in those people who are already at risk. So the American Association says that 3 drinks in a week is fine, but not more than that. Some of the lifestyle related factors, which again is important to talk about, is that overweight is something that we should avoid generally. So be physically, mentally active, try and reduce your weight. That's very important. Uh, Not having children is supposed to be again one of the things that has a higher risk. That doesn't mean we want to produce more and more, but not breastfeeding is said to be, and some birth control pills can put you at a higher risk. So it's important to check with your doctor. There are certain genes, it runs in families. So you must have heard of BRCA1, BRCA2, especially the people who are doctors would have heard. And if you have that, I'm sure you've heard of Angelina Jolie. Now, she is one person who had these genes running in a family, and she actually had a risk of having breast cancer to the extent of 99%. So she opted for having what we call a prophylactic mastectomy or removal of the breasts. So these are important risk factors that we should know about. um, More commonly, you'll find people who have larger breasts or even more doughy sort of breasts. They can get pain during their periods, pain before their periods, and it's very breasts become tender. They might have what we call fibrocystic changes or fibroadenomas. Those are benign conditions and we don't need to worry about them, but you still need to go and meet your doctor and get yourself examined and do all the tests. Generally, unclear factors that are not proven as yet are, whether night shift work or chemicals in the environment, tobacco. But those that are disproven completely, and we worry because there's regular trauma when you're wearing a bra. You feel the bra is not the right size. It can be chronic irritation, and that can, so you're worried about these things. But things like antiperspirants, deodorants have been proven not to cause or not to be a factor for breast cancer. Even breast implants are not supposed to be, because these are all myths that are in people's mind. If I've had an abortion, will I have breast cancer? It isn't so. Now, important basic prevention is stay healthy, eat properly, have a good diet, exercise, weight needs to be reduced, avoid alcohol. And I would just sort of go on for further without going into the details. Here, of course, you know that Angelina Jolie I spoke about. There you can see her
yes,
on the
yes.
left. And, Mumtaz, of course, had breast cancer. Um, how to detect it? The most important thing, and we won't say anything else, is breast self examination. uh, Mammogram can be done. It's a bit of a painful exercise, but you can do a breast ultrasound generally between the ages of 40 to 44 when you're a little in the older age group. Now 40 and 44 is not considered to be old, of course. But you would get a mammogram, especially because if especially if you're at a high risk or you've had breast cancer in the family. If somebody has had it, your aunt has had it, your mother's had it. Breast, uh, endometrial cancer, bowel cancer, all go hand in hand. Ovarian cancer. So if one has happened, then you're at a risk for the other, and this is important. Now, how do you examine your breasts? This is the most important thing. So breast self-examination should be taught to every woman. Okay, this is not to say that men can't have breast cancer. Men do have. Obviously, the incidence is much lower, though it can happen to the same degree. But women should be basically familiar with their breasts. So they should know how they look normally. So they should visually examine their breasts, see if they find any changes. I'm going to run this small clip. I don't think you'll be able to hear the voice on it, but I will give you a voiceover. Okay, and
Sure, sir.
this is how you would go ahead and then examine your breast. So it is might seem a little difficult in the beginning, but it takes hardly 1 minute to do. So what you need to do is it should really be done a week after your period, when the breasts are a little less uh, tense, and that's the best time to do it. I would say do it before as well as after your period, so you know both situations. How do you do it? You can do it um, basically whether you're standing in the shower or you can do it in front of a mirror. You first is just examining your breasts, so visual examination. You look and feel your breasts. That's very important. If you find any change, you stand in front of the mirror, see if there's any dimpling, any discharge, anything that you can see, any discoloration on the skin. These are signs that you need to take cognizance of. uh, you stand in front of the mirror or in the shower and you put your hand on your hip. Once you put your hand on your hip, if you're the side that you're examining, you relax the muscles. I think these things are coming in the middle. uh, is the whole screen showing, or these
Yes,
I think
sir.
are okay? Is
Yes,
the
sir.
whole
We can
screen?
see. Yes, sir.
Because I have these things coming in the middle, maybe, but in your recording and in your presentation, it's not coming, right? You can see the
No, no,
lady
it's
is
not
standing.
coming. We can see. Yes, we can see the lady standing and the doctor examining her.
Perfect. So, okay, so you put your hand on your shoulder. Suppose you're examining the right side. You put your right hand on your hip so that it relaxes your shoulder, right? That's important, the muscles there. Once you have done that, you use, I'll just show you. Let me run the clip. You use
Sure.
the other hand to examine with three fingers and the pulp of your fingers. You start with the nipple area and you go in circular movements all around to cover the whole breast, to feel for any lump or any other abnormality. The underarm area should also be examined after that, because this is where a high proportion of breast cancer occurs. Then you go up towards the breastbone and then in the center. You do it with the pulp of the fingers, three fingers. Start from the nipple area, go in circular movements all around, covering the whole breast, then go into the underarm area, and then towards the breastbone, and finally in the center. You do it first on one side and then you do it on the other side, and that will cover the whole uh, both sides of the breast. This should be done before and after each period, by
So
without
now it's
fail.
not showing anything on the screen. Is it what it is? Like
Yeah,
it's a black
so
screen
that's
showing now.
exactly
Yes,
how
sir.
it is. Yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure.
this covers the whole both sides of the breast. It will also, at any time, if you feel any abnormality that has come or any lump, you must just go directly to your doctor and let them then examine it and do whatever test they have to do. But this one single act of every woman doing this can bring down the incidence drastically. And it's one of the most important things to prevent breast cancer. So that's what I would want to say about this. And preventive medicine obviously is the best medicine.
Sure. Thank you so much. And that's indeed very, very important for all the women to understand the importance of, self-examining, and also to be able to talk about in front of everyone, because I think we still feel a bit hesitant to talk about these kind of things, and we do not ask these questions to the doctors as well, because we think that we're going to be, I think someone's going to be make a fool of us. But that's about your life, that's about your health, so do not risk it. Please ask these questions from your doctors and consult your doctors, because it's very important. Moving ahead, sir, let's talk about the yeast infection. What exactly is the yeast infection, and what are the causes of this infection?
Okay, yeast infection is again talked. Uh, Women's health we don't talk about. Okay, it's hidden underneath the carpet. It doesn't exist. But yeast infection is basically a fungal infection. Fungus is the yeast infection that can occur. It's a vaginal infection that can really, you know, cause problems in your daily life. How does it occur? It occurs by bad hygiene. Okay, so that's very important. It occurs if you're at prone because of diabetes. So your diabetes should be in control. Okay, it occurs due to not having safe practices during sexual intercourse. The most common cause is sexual intercourse, especially in girls who've just got married. You will find not only a yeast infection, they will have repeated yeast infections because of intercourse, but also urinary infection. So they can have a urinary infection because the vagina and the urethra are very close together. So you can have urinary infections that might go up and down. And this is actually called honeymoon cystitis in our parlance, in medical terms. So by having more fluids, by making sure your diabetes is controlled, by using condoms while having sexual intercourse, they again prevent you from having infections. By obviously proper hygiene, also when you're having menses, when the lady is going through her periods, at that point of time the immunity is a little low, so she can develop infections. You'll see a lot of them, as the ladies will be saying to us, that just before my periods or just after my periods, when I have my periods, I get these infections. That's probably because of that. And also making sure that the pads that they use are not irritating them during a period. When they're having the periods, they must change their pads frequently. So every 2 hours, do change your pad, because otherwise that can lead to again a nidus for infection and cause further infections. So yeast infections can be cured very easily. Visit your doctor. Please do not take medicines on your own. Don't say that I've been to you once, I've been to the doctor gave me these medicines, it worked for me, so I'll just take it. Because this is the worst thing that you can do, is because you might take incomplete medicines, you might not take the right medicine, it might be a different type of infection, and that will cause you more harm than anything else.
Right, sir. That is so true. And since you talked about a lot of issues as well, but how can one self? Is there a way that one can self-diagnose this infection?
Yes, you will have a discharge which is foul smelling. There will be itching down below, redness. You will not be, if it really becomes bad, you'll have difficulty in walking. Um, all these symptoms will be there. You can get fever. If it becomes even worse and it ascends upwards to the uterus, you can have pain. So, all these symptoms might be there. And as soon as you find one symptom, whether it's even a urinary tract infection, burning when you pass urine, all these things, just go to your doctor, diagnose it, and treat it as soon as you can.
And so when we talk about the treatment, is it invasive? Is it like what is exactly the treatment for this?
Oh, it's your doctor will examine you. She'll or he will do a swab maybe if there is any discharge, and send it for examination. But it's basically medication that they will get medication, and will explain to them their lifestyle, how to change it, how to what to wear, looser underwear, cotton preferably, if they require to a sitz bath. But all these things will be told by the doctor when they examine and they see how bad the infection is, or what needs to be done or what kind of infection.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for that. And now coming on to the uterine fibroids. Like we often hear about that, but a lot of people don't even know the meaning of it. So what exactly is, uterine fibroid and how is it caused?
Okay, so fibroids are basically what we call medically myomas. It is a growth in the body of the uterus, and its cause really is not known. It does have a genetic predilection. That means if your mother's had fibroid, you might have them, or you're more likely to have them, or if they run in your family. What are the symptoms? The symptoms are important. It depends on where the fibroid is and how large it is. So it can cause you heavy periods, it can cause you pain, it can cause you difficulty in conceiving, um, and of course, if they grow very large, they can cause you, or depending on where they're present or situated in the uterus, they can cause you problems with passing stool, urine. You might need to go frequently because they press on the bladder. So fibroids, but they basically, by and large, 95, 99% are not cancerous. A very small percentage is cancerous. So fibroids are basically non-cancerous, by and large, tumors of the uterus.
All right. And when we talk about the treatment, what's the treatment of fibroids?
Okay, again, it'll depend on the patient. But by and large, any tumor in the body, the thing is, it should come out. Okay. Depending on what the patient has, what the problem the patient has, if the patient has heavy bleeding and it's due to the fibroid, the only way is to take it out. Okay. That's very important. And you also want to take it out because you will then get a biopsy to make sure that that 1% that might not be uh, benign is benign. So you want to be sure that it's not malignant. So uh, by and large, you need to remove the fibroid. There are other medicines that can be given which shrink them. And it will really depend, like I said, depending on what the patient is. If the patient has come at a later stage in her life and period life, doesn't have very many symptoms, they're small fibroids, you can just wait and watch and see how they're developing. There are other modalities that are available, like I said, medication, which will shrink it for some time. But again, once the medicine stop, they will come back. So your doctor who you go to, and depending on your complaints, will make an assessment of what needs to be done, and then tell you what are the options available as far as you in particular or the patient in particular goes.
Right, indeed. Thank you so very much, sir. But as you said that it could take some time for the doctor to analyze and to diagnose exactly what exactly the stage is that person at, and so it might take some time for people to realize that how to probably live with it. So what needs to be avoided? Like if one has fibroids, so is there anything like some kind of a diet which needs to be avoided, or is there something which needs to be avoided when one has fibroids?
Well, most important is you need to go to your clinician, gynecologist, regularly for your checkups to monitor the fibroid. If it's growing, if you have symptoms, then you need to get it treated. There's no other method. You have to get it treated because that could lead to various other problems. So visiting your doctor is most important, and that goes as a general rule. You need to, I feel, in today's day and age, because we have the knowledge, preventive medicine is the name of the game. And uh, to avoid anything that is a problem or can be a problem, visit your doctor. As a bad pill, as a distasteful pill, go to your doctor for your regular, do your blood investigation checkups, have your pap smear, which we should talk about, get an ultrasound done, make sure everything is fine, and then carry on. You don't have to see the person for a whole year. So, but preventive medicine is the most important thing.
Right, sir. Thank you so very much. And before moving ahead to another topic that we have to share, we have a query from Miss Jayanti. She asks that does menopause have an effect on the yeast infection?
Yes, I think it's a wonderful question. Uh, Infections will increase with menopause, and the reason is, what is menopause? Menopause is when the ovaries stop functioning, and the main female hormone, which is the estrogen, decreases. So the periods stop. With that, estrogen is, I feel, and I say this in my lectures, is the biggest diamond that a woman can have. Okay, so forget all diamonds. You want your estrogen, and because it affects all parts of the body, whether it's your skin, your eyes, your hair, your heart, your pancreas, your uh, bowels, your uterus, everything, including your urinary bladder. The skin becomes much thinner, and you're prone to more infections. So yes, menopause, because of the inflammation caused due to the hormone going down, will can lead to people having more yeast infections,
Infection.
more urinary tract infections. Absolutely.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. I hope that we answered your query, Ms. Jayanti. And if there's anything else, you can also comment more about it if you need to ask something else. Thank you. So moving ahead, now let's talk about what is endometriosis. Like we hear about this, but as it sounds, of course, it's not that easy for a layman to understand. But it's a very important term that we hear more often. So what exactly is endometriosis and what are the symptoms?
Okay, so endometriosis, breast cancer, cervical cancer, three of my favorite topics that I like to work,
That's
because these
great.
are things that women suffer, amongst other things, silently. Uh, you're a mental health outreach person, as you mentioned to me, so you know about the mental aspects also, how they suffer. So let me talk first about endometriosis. Endometriosis is something which is when you're bleeding outside, generally the lining of the uterus, which is called the endometrium, gets shed outside. Now, when that lining is abnormally present anywhere else inside the tummy, on the ovaries, or anywhere else, you're bleeding at that point of time of your period there also. But this blood cannot come out, so it gets collected there. And this causes pain, difficulty in conceiving, heavy periods, uh, and it can be, you can lose your quality of life. I'm sure you've heard of girls who uh, don't go to office, so don't go to work, and during their periods they have pain. They have a hot water bottle. You have friends,
Of
who
course, it's a
hold a
very
hot
hard
water
time for a
bottle.
lot of people.
Yeah, and I had a friend who when I examined her and I saw her tummy, and I saw this mark on her tummy, and I said, what is this? And she said, that's where I keep my hot water bottle. So you can imagine. And so endometriosis is something that can cause pain during periods. So cannot always, but it does. And that's why I tell everybody that if you're having pain during your periods, please don't take it lightly. You must not tell your friend. You must not tell your child. You must not tell your sister. You must not tell your mother that having period pain is okay. It isn't okay. Okay, if you have pain during your periods, you must see your doctor, and they must rule out if you have endometriosis, because if you catch it early, you can effect to some extent a cure. Otherwise, it's not a curable thing. So it's important to diagnose it. It's important not to push pain, especially if you're having painkillers during your periods, and regularly, you probably are likely to have this problem. Okay, and if it's caught early, it can make a world of a difference in your lifestyle, in your quality of life, if it is treated. So please go to a doctor who knows about it and get it diagnosed and get it treated. I'm going to share a little bit with you, if I may. I have a couple of
Sure,
slides.
please. Sure, please, sir.
Uh, okay, so while I go to the slides, let me just see where they are. Here they are. Okay. Um, okay, so this one's on infertility. But of course, endometriosis, like I said, can be a cause of infertility also. That is difficulty in conceiving, because it causes the anatomy to become distorted. I'm going to go forward. Now, this is endometriosis. Okay, now these statistics are here. 1 in 10 women suffer from this problem, and it is not curable. Please, it will come back if we don't catch it early. It's probably worse than some cancers, is what I believe. Okay, but having said that, okay, here are the symptoms that you have: pain before and during periods. Okay, pain during intercourse, difficulty in conceiving, tiredness, painful passing of urine or painful passing of stool, other gastrointestinal, and it's very common to mistake it for a gastric problem. Okay, which and because I work in a hospital that is full of gastroenterologists, I know that because we get a lot of cross referrals from there. Now, some other important facts are the fact that 25 to 50% of people who cannot conceive will have this, and we need to catch it early again. 30 to 50% of women with endometriosis are infertile. So, but main thing is to make the diagnosis. That's important. So don't say that pain during periods is normal. Okay, please don't tell anybody that in future. This is what I would ask you to do. Get it diagnosed. It might be physiological. If it is physiological, we're very happy. But if it is not and it's pathological or has a reason to it, we need to diagnose it to treat it first. Now, this is, can you tell me who this is, Rohini?
Uh, I, I just know that this is a chef. I can see. I am not too sure
Yes.
about that.
Okay. So she is a lady called Padma Lakshmi. Okay.
Yes,
And do you
yes,
know of a person called Salman Rushdie?
right.
Okay. He has written a book called Satanic Verses, a very famous writer, amongst other things. And he was
Of course.
married to her. And she has endometriosis. Okay. Of course, she's had a baby thereafter. She's got treated and all that. But she is one of the ambassadors for the Endometriosis Association of America. Again, Hillary Clinton. Okay, these are all high achievers. Some of us who've had endometriosis. That doesn't mean you go and get endometriosis if you want to be a high achiever. But this is a condition, like I said, which is something that we need to speak about more. We need to talk about it. We need to diagnose it, and so that we can share, we can sort of help these women. It destroys completely their quality of life, and of course then quality of family, quality of society, everything, and they really do suffer. So this is another topic that I'm very keen on telling people about.
And thank you so much, sir. But as you said, if I may ask some questions like on related
Yeah.
to it, because as you said in the beginning that you must not tell anyone that having a pain on your periods is not normal or is normal. So of course we've been hearing this from very long time, and of course I think some amount of pain, of course we go through when, of course, when they're in when we are in menstruations and everything when it's going on. So how do one exactly see that like what what defines the pain? That how much pain is visible and how much pain is not visible, because some people, generally if we talk about, like, mostly girls do feel the pain, a lot of pain on the first day of their menstruation. So of course, how do we really define the difference between, like, if we have endometriosis or not, like if this pain concerns a little bit or not?
Okay, so what you mean is, how do we call it a red flag? Okay, so I would
Exactly.
go to the extent of saying that all pain is should be red flagged. Okay, and if that means an extra visit to your gynecologist to diagnose it, so be it, so that you don't end up with this. But having said that, obviously that's not possible. So a few red flags that I would say is, and everybody has a different threshold. So you must realize that maybe I might have a different threshold to another person. For a person, and it doesn't always
Right.
relate to pain. So you might have severe endometriosis, I might have no pain. On the other hand, I might have little endometriosis, and I might have a lot of pain. But pain is only a single symptom. Okay, so definitely the red flags would be pain for which you need to take painkillers, pain which disrupts, and this is an important one, your quality of life, your normal behavior during your day. If that disrupts it, you need to get yourself examined that you don't have this. So quality of life being interfered with, normal pattern of behavior being interfered with, need to take painkillers. Of course, if the painkillers don't affect you, then again that's another this thing. So these are 4 or 5 things about pain only that you need to understand, that these are now red flags, and you need to go and see somebody for this. Don't just push it under the, don't say that it's normal and everybody has it and my friend also puts a hot water bag, and please, you don't want to end up like a person who has endometriosis. It's not a nice thing for any woman.
Of course. course. Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you. That does deal out with a lot of concerns I had. That's great. So, do we also have the stages on endometriosis? And like as you said, that it could be little endometriosis or it could be like a more of endometriosis. So, does it have a stage, like any
Yeah,
stages
you
of
have mild,
endometriosis?
moderate, and severe. So that, of course, is for technical people who actually see it. The doctors who are going to treat you will say whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. But again, it doesn't always relate, like I said, with the pain symptoms or with the symptoms. And by and
Right.
large, your diagnosis is made on what we call a laparoscopy, which is a minimally invasive technique, and that's where we actually see what stage it is in, and then accordingly we treat the patient.
Great, great. Thank you so very much, sir. And now coming on to, we often hear about, PCOD and PCOS. I guess that's something that we all know about it, but I don't think that everyone knows the meaning of it. So what exactly is this and what are the symptoms?
Okay, so polycystic ovarian syndrome or polycystic ovarian disease is basically, uh, and we hear a lot about it, and you see many people and people talk about it. It's basically a hormonal dysfunction. Okay, and now we give fancy terms in medical parlance. We call it a metabolic disorder and what have you. But basically, what it is a hormonal imbalance, and generally this starts with the pancreas or the insulin hormone, and that really affects the female hormones. And what it does basically is the fact that when a lady during her cycle, uh, the eggs, many eggs are produced in the ovaries, right? And only one ruptures and is released during the cycle. So during this, because of the hormonal imbalance, it doesn't get released, and it can cause, so it multiple cysts in the ovaries, and that's why it's called polycystic ovaries. And this can cause, of course, infertility. The symptoms that are otherwise that a lady will see will be, tendency to gain weight, excessive hair growth, what we call hirsutism. You can have acne that will come up because there's a hormone which increases, which is so-called the androgen hormone, which can cause more acne. So hair growth, acne, tendency to gain weight, they put on weight very fast. Um, these are some irregular periods. Your periods will become delayed, irregular. You might have a little bleeding, then you might have heavy bleeding. So periods will become irregular, and you don't need to have all these symptoms together. Some people will have some of them, some people will have the others. We can have people
Right.
who are not obese, not heavyweight, and yet maybe polycystic. We call them the thin polycystic people. Excuse me. So it depends really, and like I said, it's a hormonal disease. I'm going to, if I may, again indulge you by sharing my screen a little bit about this,
Of course, sir,
so
please.
that you
Go
can
ahead.
see some pointers. Um, Also, you can have other disorders like thyroid disorder that can occur, goes hand in hand with them. So I'm going to talk about I've already said that that's an ultrasound picture of the ovary that you can see with multiple cysts. But I've already talked about the fact that it can cause infertility because ovulation does not occur, the egg is not released. You can have irregular bleeding, uh, and other symptoms. Now, this is probably we feel now a lifestyle disorder. Okay, so what we spoke about when we started this is exercise and proper nutrition or diet. So mentally and physically being fit. So if you put on weight, that leads to this disease worsening, and if this disease worsens, you put on weight. So you need to break that cycle. It's not easy, it's difficult, but then nothing in life comes easy. So but it's definitely treatable, more so with basically medication and lifestyle changes. So exercise, very important. Keep your weight down, bring it down, maintain it there. In your diet or your nutrition, you need to cut out your carbohydrates, fats, sugars, have a more high protein diet. This is what you need to do for this disease. And of course, then you have medicines which your doctor will prescribe for you, which will help you to overcome these things. It can be treated quite easily if you are determined and stick to what your doctor says. So the five important things are, of course, you need to talk about, like I said, the nutrition, the exercise, um, uh, and basically that will, along with your medicines, bring it down and control it. Very common nowadays. I see a lot of young girls who have it, and I believe it's a lot to do with our lifestyle, our dietary habits, our sedentary habits, which can then lead to it. So this is something, like you said, is very commonly heard of, and people do come in for this.
Thank you so much, sir. But as you just said that it can be treated easily, but generally we hear, since we all hear about that, there's no permanent cure for the same. If someone has PCOD, PCOS, so what is the available treatment for the same?
Okay, so permanent cure is something that it can keep coming back. Okay, it
Yeah.
is there. It's a condition you have. It can put you even at a risk of having diabetes later on. But what is the treatment you said? Again, I'll repeat: exercise, dietary habits, need to change, lifestyle changes. It's like diabetes. Okay, it's not diabetes. Please don't give. I'm not telling you that it's diabetes, but it's similar. Diabetes is considered to be a lifestyle disorder. So if you control your lifestyle, uh, it can be treated very easily. It's nothing to get excessively worried about, but it's not something you can leave. You need to get it treated, and then depending on what reason you've gone to the doctor for, whether it's you're gaining weight, whether it's your irregular periods, whether it's your difficulty in conceiving, whether it's your hair growth, whether it's your acne, that is in particular treated with medicines also. But medicines alone only won't help. It has to be, which is why you are, as it's very easy, you pop in your pills and everything happens and it's fine, but it will not happen in this disease. You have to change your habits. It's as simple as that.
That's true. Exactly, sir. That's true, and that's what actually normal people do. They just think if the medicines are available, they just pop in the medicines as it's prescribed, but they do not do the things which needs to be done as well. Exercise is the most thing which people do not take very seriously. So that's a very valid point you actually brought up, sir. Thank you so much. Before ending this, sir, I think there's this question which actually brings out a lot of attention of people, because generally we hear a lot of celebrities and other girls as well, going for the breast implants because they feel that the size of the breasts are not that appropriate for them. How safe is that, and what exactly is it? Because of the hormonal changes? Is it because of the hormones that's not raising, or what exactly could be the reasons for it?
Okay. It's again, like I said, there is a bit of an overlap between the gynecologist and the general surgeon, and now we have breast surgeons and people who actually specialize in this work. But yes, the if you do go to a breast surgeon, or if you go in for a breast implant surgery, uh, excuse me, uh, the doctor who's doing it will and should tell you the pros and cons. He will tell you the downside of it. um, you talked about breast being smaller, breast being larger is another issue. Okay, so
Right.
these are issues that women don't talk about, like the other issues that we've spoken about, which is important to deal with. And these can cause a lot of uh, problems psychologically with the woman, with anybody. It's like my face is disfigured. If my face is disfigured, I will always, you might not see the scar on my face. It might be very thin. But for me, when I look in that mirror, I look at the scar only and I feel
Only.
there's something wrong with me. So, this is a perception issue which is very important. And when it starts affecting the person, in this case, the lady, to the extent that she is traumatized, or it interferes with her lifestyle, psychologically having a problem, then obviously it needs to be treated, not only by counseling but offering her whatever you can, which includes breast surgery and implants or breast reduction surgery. But that is to be really judged by the person who's treating the person. and counseling is a very important part of it, to explain to the lady or to whoever's come that, this is the situation, these are the downsides, this is the upside, or whatever it is. And then it's for the doctor, who's the ethical person, to take the ethical call of how to go ahead, whether it's to do the surgery or not to do the surgery. That's very important. But these are real problems. They are not something that we might think that people are. No, these are real problems, and these can cause a problem with anybody, and they need to be treated in whichever way they can, so that the person is helped, and that's very important.
That's very well true. That's rightly said, sir. Thank you so much. And as we talk about this, so one of our viewers has asked that is the surgery only option for people to to increase or to decrease their breast, or there are other available either medicine or anything like that is there as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. So again, a good question. It is to be decided by the person who you are visiting, as in the healthcare provider, or for that matter, your gynecologist, for that matter, your breast surgeon, who will tell you what can be done, what is necessary. But yes, there are hormones that can be given to increase the size of the breast also. But not everything is for every person, and not everything is works in every person, and can work to the same degree. It really has to be that particular individual who is assessed by the healthcare provider, and then given the options of what is can be done for her or him.
thank you so much. So that's very true. Thank you. Thank you so much all for your time, and mainly we really appreciate your time, Dr. Manchanda, because we know how valuable your time is. And but before ending this, I request you to please give out a small message to our viewers.
Okay, I'm going to, if I may, at the end, share my screen again, and that will
Sure,
bring
sir,
out the
please.
message that I want to give really to everybody. And this is a picture which actually says most of the things that I want to say. Actually, let me go and
Sure, sir.
not only talk about that picture, but just 2 seconds of sharing my screen. Um, okay, so this seems to be just appropriate for what you've asked me. I think I might as well. So find your health professionals you trust and can contact for questions, advice, and consultation. And this is not to sell SeekMed or PSRI or Dr. Manchanda, just to tell you a message. Get your annual gynecological checkup and regular pap smear. We haven't spoken about it. Maybe at another forum we can done. Protect yourself against sexually transmitted diseases. So practice safe sex, and obviously unwanted pregnancy can be prevented. Eat healthy. Move your body outside, not inside. That's important. Okay, which is very difficult in today's COVID times. But I'm sure you have some space somewhere where you can do your spot jogging. Once into their 30s, it becomes more difficult to get pregnant. 30s, 40s, miscarriage increases. So your best time to plan your pregnancy may be 20s and 30s. Preconception checkup is important. Uh, Take pride and solace in all that you do. Not the most ideal picture here of Miss Kocher, but this is something that she said, and I have in my side. So anything can happen anytime, as you know what happened with her. Love your body; it's very important. Give credit where credit is due. We tend not to do that. And this is the slide that I really wanted to show. Can you see those three ladies there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so on the left hand side, extreme left, is a lady who's 77. In the
Wow.
center is a lady who's about 42. And on the right is, I would like to say, a girl who's about 24, 25. Okay,
Wow.
and all these three had gone on a trek which was high up in the hills. And it's all about health, taking care of your health, looking after yourself, giving yourself priority. Otherwise, you can't do what they did. So the one on the left is my mother, the other one is a friend, and the other one is a friend also. So they went for a trek, which is why it's important to look after yourself, look after your health, both mentally as well as physically. So that's my take home message, that at any age, at any stage, and be it anybody, forget women, more so women, it's important to take care of yourself, and take pride in yourself and look after your health.
Thank you so very much, sir. That was a great message and actually very well needed as well. And now, if we talk about the message from Seekman, also there's one person who asked the question before, Ms. Jayanti. She asked that should we wait for the pandemic to end before scheduling routine pap smear? I would suggest please do not wait, because I think all the hospitals and all the people are taking much precautions, are great precautions now for you, just for you, because there's like to deal away with all these kind of pandemic, you should not be struggling with all other problems. So of course, go consult the doctor. Am I right, sir? Would you like to add
I
on?
I would add to it now. Even though it's difficult, and I always tell my patients I would like to see you, but now in today's day and age, you can always have a virtual consult. You can't have a virtual pap smear, but you can definitely have a virtual consult, and your doctor can take a call on how urgent it is. Because the question that you said, was asked by, we don't know how old the girl was or how old the lady is, how long ago she had a pap smear, has she ever had a pap smear, not has it, is it does it run in her family. So depending on the questions that the doctor will ask, there'll be a risk assessment, and then that doctor will advise the person for whether it's a pap smear or any procedure. If it can be avoided, if the doctor feels, they will definitely tell them that. But otherwise, we're doing routine procedures. Do not leave. The message, like you said, is don't leave your problem till it becomes worse, and that's what we are now seeing with the pandemic. So it's important, contact your doctor if nothing else.
Right. Thank you so very much, sir. And that's also just a message from SeekMed that we women, there has been a time that we haven't been able to speak about a lot of our problems, like, breast cancer and the vaginal infection and the yeast infection. I think these are the words that we do not speak out really out loud. But now it's the time to break all the stereotypes, because it's all about your health and you should consider it very, very important. So please break the stereotype and talk about your problems, consult the doctors. And the most important message is this, that do not try to self-diagnose everything, because we try to do it by Googling it, by trying to surf it. So do not do it everything, because everything is not that easy to diagnose. So consult the doctors. So that's about it from our end. And thank you so much all. And I hope that we've managed to answer all the queries and the whole session could help you in any way. In the end, I would like to thank SeekMed, a telemedicine platform helping patients community through video consultations and connecting them with the award-winning doctors of national and international repute from all over the world. And we promise that we would keep coming back on a webinar with new and much needed topic to answer your queries by our senior experts. Thank you once again, and sure, sir, please.
Thank you, Rohini. Brilliant talking to you. Thank you for spending your time on Sunday. And of course, thank you, SeekMed. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you all. And please follow our SeekMed page for healthcare updates, and download the app for a video consult with the doctors now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Bye, sir.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.